So my name is Andy Jones, and I'm an actor and a writer. I have been working in St. John's for 52 years. I generally work in comedy, and I work lots in collective comedy in my early years especially.
My name is Azal Dusaj. I'm a writer, a director, a producer. I've been working in the St. John's theatre community for about 6-7 years now. I've always been very fascinated with comedy in theatre, but also political comedy in theatre. I can start that.
Yeah.
Because I did not grow up in St. John's. I wasn't familiar with Codco. I wasn't familiar with your work. I wasn't familiar with work of other people who were involved with Codco. But when I was translating the works of Khusharan Singh, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, everybody kept saying to me, "Oh, you should watch Codco, or you should get in touch with those people." So I did some online research. I watched some stuff, and then in 2020, I had the opportunity to get some money from St. John Shorts to kind of start an early dramaturgy of the translations I had done of Khusharan Singh's work, and I was able to approach you. And perhaps it was the pandemic that made it happen, but you were available, you were very interested too, and that was the first time we met. I remember we met in your apartment.
That's right. That's right. Yes, yes. And I got to read your translations.
Yeah.
I kept trying to do them in Newfoundland accent. So I was thinking, oh yeah, I can see where this is coming from in that world too. Right?
Yeah. And it really fit the translations, the way you did them in as if they were set up in Newfoundland. They worked. They just worked.
It's interesting sometimes. Like I remember doing some of the Codco material with like a New York accent, and it kind of works anyway. It doesn't really matter.
I will ask you. You saw the show last year.
Yeah.
You saw Tamasha last year. How would you say it was different from other things that have been happening in the city, and how can it appeal to the general population? Because that was my biggest thing when I was developing the show. I've been developing it for like 4, 5, almost 6 years now, and every person I went to help me develop, I kept saying that the core idea is I want to make a political satire piece that's universal, which is just even hard to comprehend because political satire is so specific to time and space. So how do you create a satire piece that can be current and that can be relevant to the place it's happening in, but then you do it anywhere else in the world and they will get it too?
Well, I think there is that kind of everyman quality that your piece has. That the characters in it are in situations which everybody finds themselves in the world. But it's local enough that it's real in the sense that if you try to be too universal, then you're from nowhere.
Yeah.
You need to see something so I think you've succeeded in doing that, and being from a place, but still not too specific at all.
Yeah.
And you also have that ability to be kind of, there's kind of a Newfoundland flavor to it. Lots of the characters in your piece have, which is fun too. So I think it works. It works in that way too. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Do you have any questions for me?
No, I was just wondering how you found that. How you found your reception here generally to this piece and to other stuff you've done.
I will stick to the reception that we got for the Tamasha last year, and I was honestly, we all knew it was a collaborative project. We all knew we did something amazing, but it was very, very heartwarming to see people come up to you after the show and say things like "Thank you," somebody had to say it, or like people messaging me later that may have been and young people who maybe don't see as much theatre, them letting us know that this was the best thing they've seen. So it was really, really good to be able to pull people into a show and let them be a part of the show when we are hurting, or when we are hurting with audiences at the moment, when it's hard for especially people of my generation and even younger. it's been hard to get them out to see theater. Theater as a business has been hurting too. So finding ways to connect with those audiences that we are disconnected with at the moment, that was my biggest takeaway from the show, and I hope we can keep on building on that. Because my hope is, and this is a philosophy that comes from Gurcharan Singh, whose work makes up this show, that if you don't ask society a question, he always said, if you don't ask society a question, why are you doing theater? And then the second thing he said was, if your show is not entertaining, if you're not entertaining the people, if you're not inviting the people, if the theater or if the art is not for the people, then they're not going to listen to you. Then they won't be. Then it's that essentially you're just lecturing them instead of giving them something. So my biggest thing is, we're not selling a show, we are giving a show. We want people to just come and take the show. And that's why we have worked so hard to make 4 out of 6 shows, essentially free, so that people can just come and take the show.
And that's the tradition of the kind of theater you are drawing onto, right?
Exactly.
Just
like
public.
Exactly. Gurcharan Singh used to write his shows keeping in mind the actors he's working with, would rehearse for a bit, then pack his team of like 4 or 5 people in a small Maruti car, and then drive around the villages, open up his car, bring out his costumes, set up in a open ground, and then invite people from villages, and then have them watch them. And his thing was also getting the people who do not go to theaters to get those people out to see the shows, and that's what I want to do with Tamasha.